I'm super excited to have Theresa Byrne here today. Theresa, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or wherever you are in the world. Good day to you.
So, Theresa, as some of you know, is a big part of my life. When it comes to boundaries, we're the boundary queens, I would say, right?
No, I'm going to go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been teaching boundaries together and apart for decades. We've taught boundaries for beautiful relationships, our 8-week course, several times together. We've done several videos and podcasts on boundaries. We've written a book on boundaries, and we're about to launch something new about boundaries, and we'll tell you more about it at the end of this video. Woohoo!
Yeah. Stick around. Stick around. Exciting things happening.
That is correct. Today, we're going to focus on setting personal boundaries in relationships. It is a crucial thing when you are in a relationship to not only know your own boundaries, but to be able to express them and to enforce them, and to know the person you're dating's boundaries and what to do when boundaries are violated or not met. And Theresa has been in a long-term relationship for about a year and a half, right?
Almost 2 years. Yeah. Yes.
Almost 2 years. And this has been a very different kind of relationship. It's been fascinating to hear about it because this is a person who is not as available as you are. You have had to set some very specific agreements around availability, around what to do when the availability is not met, and different things like that. But before we get to Theresa's story, I just want to talk a little bit about personal boundaries and why they're so important. This is something we love talking about. And so we all need to set boundaries for ourselves. It's the way we stay aligned with our truth, with who we really are. And we all have unique boundaries that are important to us. Some of them could be things like what time we go to sleep, what time we wake up, the kind of food we eat, and whether we have screens in the bedroom or not. What are some of yours, Theresa?
Well, and for any of you who've seen or been around Sandy and I have some very specific ones. And I turn screens off around 9:15, 9:30 every night. I try to be in bed by 10 to 10:30 and asleep. And that is kind of pretty rigorous because it helps me get the sleep that I need. And then I'm also very committed to my health. So I eat gluten free, sugar free, as organic as I can get, something pretty healthy with a focus on health. And those are really important to me. They may not be as important to someone I'm dating, but when someone's dating me, it's important that they understand that's what I'm looking for. I want those kinds of things in my own relationship. And I don't demand that on anyone else. I also exercise. To me, exercise is a have to. It is not a get to. It keeps me safe, keeps me sane, keeps all the people around me safe. So, exercise, eating. I also have self boundaries around the ways that I communicate with people. I try to stay focused on the positive. I try not to go into the negative as much. And that's a self boundary as much as it is when I'm in conversation or relationship with someone. Hey, I get that there's venting, but let's also focus on different solutions. And that's just that personal boundary that I have.
I love that one. That's a big one for me too. Actually, everything you say, except I'm not gluten free and do all the sugar
Yeah, but
free.
you eat really healthy as
I
well.
do.
So
I eat healthy, and it's important to me to not give that up for somebody that I'm dating. The whole thing about people who just call and complain, that has been a huge one for me. And just even in conversation, like, are you looking for a solution? Or are you just calling to vent? Because if you're just calling to tell me the same thing over and over again, I don't have much time for that one. But I will sit there and help you brainstorm solutions till the cows come home. And I think, just the exercising, and not to give that up. I had a client once who had to meditate every morning, and when she was dating, she tended to be much more focused on the man than on herself. And we coached around that, how she has to really carve that time out for herself, where she becomes pretty grouchy, just like when we don't have our morning coffee or we don't eat well and we don't get our exercise, we get wonky. We get out of alignment. It's like we have this wheel that's turning and it's now bumpy and right. But when you know these things about yourself and you're really clear, you can communicate them with people, your communication style, all of these things. And let's talk a little bit about why we can know these things, but we don't always keep to them. Why is it so hard to keep to our boundaries, Theresa?
One thing I'm always amazed at is we are the most important person in our lives until we're not. So all of our self boundaries matter until maybe we've got someone else in our lives. And then if you tend toward people pleasing or this relationship carries a lot of weight for you, then that relationship jumps up in the priorities list and you drop down. And understanding that, oh, if I'm in a relationship, then I will feel the pull toward not meditating. I meditate as well, or I will feel the pull to stay on the phone or texting late at night, or knowing that in a relationship, because we value a relationship, we are wired for connection. And there is oftentimes a misbelief that not even that the other person is asking us to give these things up, that to give up parts of ourselves. In fact, they love us more when we say who we are, when we say, works for me, that, boundaries, my thing is what you do and what you don't, and what you will and what you won't. And that makes someone understand you. But for many of us, we shove all of that. Well, what do you want? Where do you want to eat? How late do you want to stay up? How late do you want to stay on the phone? And it becomes about the other person because we think erroneously that if we set a boundary, they might leave. It's almost as if boundaries equal abandonment. Boundaries equal people saying they don't love us.
Yeah, that is true. I think we, especially for people pleasers, so we want to keep the peace. We think that setting a boundary actually is a wall or it's a demand. And sometimes it is. It's not really a boundary. It's you must do this. And so when we don't have the right words for boundaries and we don't know how to set them, how to check in with somebody, how to even know why this is important to us, then we can't communicate it well. But I know for me, I love being around people with boundaries because they're really clear. We know how we need to be around them. And if that doesn't work for us, we can walk away. So, Theresa, you've been in this relationship for almost 2 years, and there were some boundaries you set in the beginning because of the circumstances of your relationship. So, tell us a little bit about what those boundaries were.
When I met this wonderful man, his name is John. John's younger than I am, and he's in a different stage in his life. And bless his heart, we communicated online for 3 months before I agreed to meet him. When we first met, he brought up at our first date some of the issues that have happened in my old relationships. I work a lot, and I don't have as much time as someone else might want or has. And at that time, I wasn't dating anybody and hadn't for a while. And I asked him, well, what does that look like? And he said, well, it's usually, I can see somebody usually once or twice a week, maybe sometimes a little bit more, maybe sometimes a little bit less, depending on work schedule. At the time, I was like, that sounds fabulous. No problem with that. And so he was very clear up front. As we got into the relationship, I started realizing that not knowing when I was going to see him was creating an anxiousness in me. 3 weeks in, said, hey, can we set a day of the week that is our day? If I had that day, it would help me alleviate this discomfort. Now, would most women do that? No. I mean, there might have been like I can't believe he doesn't pick a day, and what's he planning, and when am I going to see him, and being upset. And yeah, I noticed for me, I was anxious. I didn't want to be anxious. I knew it wasn't about him, it was about me. And knowing that if I asked boundary for this one thing, it would help. So we picked Sunday. And our Sunday is the day that we spend together. We'll go date, we'll train, we'll do all kinds of different things. But Sunday was our day. So no matter what else was happening during the week, that day I could set aside. Then we also added Thursday. Great. So Thursday nights, I know that I will see him. I'll clean my house. I'll do all the prep work. Ladies, what I'm talking about, pluck and shave and all that stuff. And it was nice. It was very nice to know those 2 days were going to be our time together, help to alleviate the anxiety. What happens when that doesn't work out? Well, I realized that he was gone for a couple of weeks in a row, and I realized I have an issue. If we've gone longer than a week, it starts to be retroactively unhealthy in my system. I start to build stories. I start to feel less important. I start to think I'm not a priority. I start to feel like he's not missing me, or we're not communicating enough. I don't feel connected. And it was really through trial and error and I realized this is my boundary, a week. If it goes longer than a week, I start to struggle. And when that happened, I was then able to bring it up and let him know, knowing that we've done everything we possibly can to see each other once a week. The times when we can't see each other once a week, we try to stay connected. And as I said, he's very busy. He also goes to many, many conferences. So if you've ever been in the conference world, it's nonstop for 4 days. And texts aren't as available. And we might talk on the phone, but we usually don't. So we started trying to create ways to stay connected. And I won't say that we're always doing a great job of it. Part of it's been me managing my expectations, but also knowing that I am really important to him. He misses me so much when we aren't seeing each other, but life also happens. I've been able to work on my own expectations, my own anxiety around, when will I see him? Does he miss me? Does it matter? Am I important? Knowing all that is true, I've been able to move into a space where I'm a little bit more free. I'm a little bit more trusting.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I have been witness to all the upset times and all the exciting times. And it's been so much fun to follow, because I think a lot of women would have, first of all, not gotten involved with somebody who wasn't as available as she would have liked him to be. And number two, having had a secure attachment style your entire life, suddenly feeling anxious was such a foreign thing to you. And you were always at these choice points. Do I stay or do I go? What do I do when he's really not available? Why is he not in touch with me during these times? I mean, it's a hard thing to navigate. And I think over time, you've realized he really has good intention. And I want to bring that up, because I think that no matter what happens in a couple's life, that the intention you bring to a relationship is so crucial. So if somebody values the relationship and values you, they're going to do whatever it takes to make it work within their life, within the boundaries that work for them, because that's also important. Like, he's not going to give up his job because he met you. He still has to do those things, but he has put some things in place, like hiring more staff and not having to travel as much. So he's working towards having a life that's a little bit more stable, a little more present, where he can be more available. And you have recognized some things in yourself, which I thought were also really important, which happened to a lot of us during COVID, which is, wait a minute, I forgot to refill my social life and have a life. And you said, oh, I need to be more busy. I need to have more going on for myself. I've seen that really get in the way of relationships a lot, where we depend so much on one person to be everything for us and to fulfill all of our needs. And so that personal boundary of, hey, wait a minute, I'm depending too much on somebody to fill my time. What can I do in the time when somebody isn't with me so they're not my everything?
Well, there's two points I want to bring up. When I was going through these choice points, do I want to stay in this relationship? I'm absolutely 100% feeling adored, loved. He's present when we're together. And it was never the times that we were together that were issues. It was our time apart. And I needed to decide which was more important, quantity or quality. And being in a relationship where it is such an amazing soul filling, it helped me heal my brain. I learned to play chess. He brought me a chess set one Christmas. I started healing in different ways because I was able to fall in love with John. It's such a great relationship when we're together, and I get so much out of it that it's not worth it for me just to end it because he's not seeing me enough, or I'm not spending enough time with him. And I would also ask women to look at that. When you're together, how is it? How is that relationship? And I've had negative relationships where I got to see them all the time. I'd rather have this. And that second piece was realizing, especially after COVID, he became my entertainment. And I literally felt like it was his job to keep me entertained, whether it was during the day, whether it was the times we spent together and how many times we got to see each other. He was the bright spot in my week. And I realized I needed to start bringing more bright spots. I needed to start finding more interest. And Sandy and I talked about this many times, that I realized there was a lack or kind of an ebb in my own life, and I needed to fill my own self up, which is what we teach anyway, and not make it all about someone else. And I sort of dipped into making it about him because I loved being with him. It was so much fun. There was so much light and laughter and connection. And I let that be my entertainment for the week, were those 2 nights that I'd see him. And I started filling my life back up. I'd made a conscious choice to start finding more things to do, or going out and socializing more often, spending more time with friends.
We all can relate to becoming too dependent on one person, even if it's a friendship. We have friends who we rely on because they're our closest friend. And so we don't really fill our life with people who are not as close. And it is important not to depend so much on one person for everything. It used to be that a village surrounded us for all parts of our lives. We went to one person for one thing and another person for another. And we've become so self-reliant and reliant on one or two people to be everything. And I think that having that mindset of actually we have abundance in our lives and we come from that place. So we don't want to beg for the little crumbs that come from a person who doesn't have the bandwidth to give everything to us. I'm going to stop here because there's so much more to say, and we could talk about boundaries forever, but we are bound by time here. I know, Theresa, you have something that you need to get to, and so that's a time boundary. We talked in the beginning about this exciting new program that we've been working on for over a year now. It's called Boundary University, and it's a series of 10 courses that you can take, 1, 10, 5, 3. You can take whatever.
All or some.
Yes, all or some. We had this idea that the boundary courses that we've taught have been very comprehensive. They're 8 weeks. It's extremely time intensive, and it requires you to show up in person to Zoom calls. This is a do-it-yourself series of courses. If you have already studied some of boundaries, but you need some help with codependency or people pleasing or any aspect of boundaries, you'll find it there at Boundary University. And to introduce this, we're giving this link out for the very first time to a video series that we created. It's free.
So it's a 5-day training series on healthy boundaries, and we cover many different aspects of boundaries. You'll get one video each day, and we'll ask you to practice. Each video comes with a practice or practical application, because both Sandy and I, while being experts at boundaries, we're not just teaching you. We want you to apply these things to your life. We want you to learn, understand, and hopefully love boundaries and agreements, and see boundaries as ways to connect with people more so than these big walls that you set.
bit.ly/boundary series. Join us over there. And if you're ready to start taking some of the courses, they're up and available. And we appreciate you joining us here and in all of our boundary work. Boundaries are beautiful. They are amazing. They keep us safe and sane. Thank you, Theresa, for sharing your story today and for being a great example of how to set personal boundaries in relationships and with yourself.